here on CBS Sports HQ. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders will forever be linked in their NFL careers as the ongoing battle between who should be called QB1 in this year's draft will be argued on until we hear Roger Goodell make the pick in Green Bay later this April. Our Ryan Wilson thinks the decision will be an easy one. He has the Titans taking Ward #1 overall. That kind of echoes what our Mike Renner said earlier. Shedeur goes 3rd overall to the Giants to be the next quarterback to save that franchise. But these two aren't the only quarterbacks that Ryan has going in round 1. It's a stark difference from what we saw last year, where we saw 6 quarterbacks taken across the first 12 picks. Jaden Daniels, of course, won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Maybe the Bears feeling like they made a mistake with Caleb Williams. I personally feel like it's a little too early to say that, but that's just what the narrative around the NFL has been there. We'll have to wait and see who the next big star is when it comes to rookie quarterbacks as we welcome you back inside our studios. We've got Leger and Danny kicking it with us here on set. I'm Haley Sutton alongside Jacqueline D'Agostino. We are going through Danny Kanell's quarterback rankings for the class of 2025. I know there's some contention in here already, so I'm excited to get started. Danny, we're going to start with your number 6, Quinn Ewers. I think this is a perfect spot for him, you know, between the injuries and having to deal with Arch Manning's legacy season.
Right.
It's been tough, but why 6 for Quinn Ewers?
So I've got him at 6 for a couple of different reasons. One, obviously the guys I like in front of him a little bit more, but I'm a little bit worried about Quinn Ewers and the upside that's there. He's played a lot of football at Texas, and he really has maximized it, been in a system where he's had really good players around him, and he's stepped up in some really big spots, including last year at Alabama, this year in Tuscaloosa, back-to-back Final Four appearances for the Texas Longhorns. But I worry about 2 things. 1, the top-tier arm strength, and 2 is injuries. Did not finish any season he played in, start to finish. And then what I wonder is how much those injuries impacted his arm strength. The deeper ball started to bloop a little bit, started to hang in the ball, impacted his accuracy to some of those harder throws to the outside of the field that are kind of those deep outs, deep comebacks. We saw in the SEC Championship, he had a couple of those picked off. So I'm a little bit worried about the top side, the upside with the arm strength with Quinn Ewers. But somebody who's played a lot of football, I think he's probably a 4th round pick, 3rd or 4th round pick for Quinn Ewers. So I like him probably in that vicinity, but yeah, I have him at 6 for that reason.
Yeah, DK, I think a lot of people were surprised he actually didn't come back for another year because of the injuries you talked about. People were highly touted about his arm strength, right? But on tape from Texas, a lot of times you don't see him use it a lot. And then, like you said, a lot of times it was like some of those moon balls would just die out and get picked off. So also worry about him against better competition. The 2 games versus Georgia, those are teams or players that are going to be in the NFL. Those are the type of defenses you're going to see. And those were his 2 worst games of the year. So I think I like where you have him at number 6. I honestly, Dillon Gabriel is a guy I think that's been gaining some momentum. He could be right there with him in that number 6 spot.
See him right back there.
I think Quinn needs to grow
he might still be on the list, though. You don't know.
He could be on the list.
Bring the mullet back. That's where it all went wrong.
Bring the mullet back.
Let's go to number 5, and this is, I don't know, not the flashiest name when we're thinking about the Shedeur Sanders and the Cam Wards that are typically in these rankings. We're talking about Tyler Shough. DK, what do we need to know about him?
So this is another potential guy. Now, this is your guy with prototypical size. He's 6'5", 230. He's got a big body, but the unfortunate thing for him, he hasn't been healthy. I mean, you talk about somebody who hasn't been able to play, started his career at Oregon, you know, doesn't work out there. Then he goes to Texas Tech, doesn't play a complete season there for a couple years. Then finally stays healthy for a full season and puts together a pretty nice year with 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The raw talent is there, but I do think this is one I would hesitate taking in one of those top 3 rounds, probably in the 4th round or later, where you say, you know what, this is a project where if he can stay healthy, he's got those physical abilities to throw the big ball, to move the ball around the field. He's got adequate capabilities, run the football. But this to me is all about that potential play, because when he's healthy, he's as good as anybody.
Yeah, another question mark with him. He's going to be a lot older than most of these guys. He's going to turn 26 throughout the next season. Wow, and he's a guy that looks like the prototypical quarterback. You talked about a 6'5", 230 pounds, has a big arm, hasn't stayed healthy, but he looked like a totally different player this year at Louisville. When you talk about the accuracy, 23 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. And honestly, he played really well during the Senior Bowl week. He was the MVP of the quarterback room there. So he's gained some momentum throughout this process as well.
Let's talk about Kyle McCord, who comes in at number 4 on your list. And I love this story because I think when he transferred out, or I guess he was forced out of the Buckeyes, a lot of people kind of cast him to side, right? Okay, whatever, go play at Syracuse. And what does he do? He turns around and he leads the country in passing yards at all of college football, Danny. So I like the fit here at number 4.
I might even move him up, but that's a story for another day.
I like it. So I think he's probably the sleeper in this draft. As far he's not, and Haley, to your point, he's not getting talked about as one of the top 3 quarterbacks. But not only did he go and lead the country in yards, also led him to a 10-win season. Like, that's a thing that I love about him. He's a winner, and his stats are a little bit misleading this year. He had 12 interceptions on the year. 5 of them came against Pitt in that national scene, which really docked him. But I love the way he bounced back, and they came back after that game. He threw the ball really well. This is a player who couldn't live up to the expectations at Ohio State, even though he threw 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. At Ohio State, you're just measured by a different bar. They wanted more, and they ended up getting it. But I do think this is a player who's played a lot of football. He's thrown a lot around. He's seen a lot of defenses. I think he's a great value where he's probably going to go in that 3rd round somewhere.
All right, let's get to the point of the list where I feel like we're going to have a little knuckles ready to go. Number 3, Shedeur Sanders is here at number 3, which a lot of folks,
That's great.
A lot of folks have him going QB1, okay? And like that is their top guy. So what is keeping him at 3? Even though it might be good, but for Shedeur, I don't know.
He and my 2 are very, very close. They're neck and neck. I don't think either one are close to Cam Ward, though. I do have my number 1 as far as a separator than these 2. But I have noticed, and I think a lot of people are starting to notice, Jaxson Dart, who is the 2nd. But I have Shedeur 3, and let me tell you why I have him 3. I'm a little bit worried that he is tapped out. You talk about upside, what teams want to go for. His arm strength isn't elite. His mobility isn't elite. His football IQ is.
I was about to say.
He manages the game. He could be potentially a guy, I think of like a Drew Brees, somebody who was not picked in the 1st round, dropped to the 2nd because he didn't have elite arm talent. But he is highly accurate. I worry about him if he doesn't go to a place that protects him where he's not going to be able to escape. And the game is moving to more mobile quarterbacks. We've talked about, the true pocket passer, which I do think Shedeur is closer to that version than somebody who's a dynamic runner. So for those reasons, I had him just below my number 2.
I thought you were in prime, hugged it out. You guys were good now. Now you're dropping his son in the draft.
I should have taken the Dallas job. Come on, and
Me too.
But to your point, I think out of all the quarterbacks, he processes the best out of all of them. Like, he's the most pro-ready prospect when you talk about the quarterbacks in this year's draft. People talk about his mobility. I've saw it in spurts. I thought it was good enough at the NFL level. Now, to your point, yes, the game is going to a more mobile quarterback. I think he's mobile enough. He showed last year he can get out of some pressure because you talked about it, him not being protected. He wasn't protected a lot at Colorado, and you see the numbers right there. Completion percentage was number 1, top 4 in pass yards, and 2nd in all of college in passing touchdowns. So he's a little bit higher on my list. I love the guy that you have above him, but I would still take Shedeur over Jaxson Dart.
We know that you're taking Cam Ward. You kind of gave that away.
Yeah, so much for
there's the surprise. But I think the bigger surprise here is who you have at number 2 ahead of Shedeur Sanders, and that's Ole Miss's Jaxson Dart. I mean, like, this is a name that I think we've heard.
Yes.
But your 2nd best quarterback in this class.
Yes.
You agree?
I think he's blowing away people with his interview skills, with his raw talent, and with the fact that he's been a multi-year starter in the SEC. The thing I love about him is you saw improvement every single year. Completion percentage went up every single year. Yardage went up. Touchdown interception ratio went up. And he elevated Ole Miss to a program where they were a consistent winner. I know they missed out on the playoffs this season, but he elevated his program around him, threw the ball a lot in the SEC, and durability. Took a lot of shots throughout his career and did not get hurt, was able to show that he can, endure the pounding that you're going to have to take at the NFL.
What I love about him is what we're seeing on these highlights. He will stare down the gun barrel. He's the toughest quarterback out of all these quarterbacks. Go back to that Georgia game. First 3 plays, he got wrecked. Came back and led them to a win in that game. Now, he needs help with his processing because he processes a little bit slower and throwing with better anticipation. But those are things that coaches can help you in. So, again, I love that you have him that high because I was on the Jaxson Dart bandwagon way before everybody else. But I still think I would take Shedeur a little bit before him.
All right, gentlemen. So we know number 1 is Cam Ward. We're short on time here, so we just want one word from each of you to just that encapsulates Cam Ward in his game. Danny?
Electric.
Electric, okay.
Arrogant arm talent.
That's 3 words.
I mean, you cheated. That's not fair.
Arm talent.
Okay, we'll
put it together.
We'll accept it.
I would say electric, volatile.
Yeah. I'd argue that he's not. I mean, like, his play is electric, but his personality, I feel like it's not
that's
electric.
What you want. That's what you want in your quarterback, your friend.
We had a spicy quote. Maybe
we did have the
preview of what's to come. If you don't draft me, that's your fault, and I'll remember that. So who knows? Again, getting a look at Danny Kanell's top 6 quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. Cam Ward right at number 1, kind of like 2A and 2B with Jaxson, Shedeur, Sanders, Kyle McCord, Tyler Shough, and Quinn Ewers rounding out the top 6.